important is personal branding when it comes to creating content?
In my view, content creation is one of the best tools for building a personal brand because it covers various aspects. On one hand, it provides the opportunity for me to showcase my expertise, meaning that through the content I create, the viewers can see in which area I bring expertise and gain trust as a result. On the other hand, it is also a good platform to introduce myself as a person, because through my content, when I create it authentically, my values and areas of interest are visible. This means I will automatically attract the audience that aligns with those, and I believe that is one of the most important things overall. So if you are an entrepreneur, you should work with a target audience where the values align and where the interests match, and where one can mutually strengthen each other with the skills they bring, and content creation provides a very good tool for that. I can not only showcase my expertise, but I can also provide real, true value for my viewers, and I believe that is one of the most important points that is often overlooked. So many people create content because they think, I want to go viral somehow, I want to make money from it, and that's all good. So, you can make money with content. As an entrepreneur, I see a lot of potential in that. I also share this with my clients and my students on how to do it. However, one should always keep in mind that on the other side, there is a person, and one of the most important resources we bring is, in my view, time. For me, this means that I am always aware that when I create content, I want to provide true value and really only take as much time from my audience as I can deliver value. When you do that, it provides a good foundation to show the other person who I am as an individual, and personal branding has a lot to do with me as a person. I believe it is much easier to assess someone when you see their content, especially in video format, because anyone can write texts, particularly today with AI, and you can't really tell what is truly behind it. So, is this person speaking from experience, or is it some script generated by an AI tool? Is that authentic? Is it staged? Or is there really expertise behind it? Is there a fundamental understanding of interdisciplinary thoughts or subject areas? From my perspective, if you really have something to offer, it's a very good opportunity to establish your personal brand. I appreciate this question because I believe we humans ask too little about what moves someone to do something. And I find it important, as it defines us as human beings, that we care about each other and understand the motivations of others. And for me, as you said, I was always very curious. However, my problem was that in the areas where I brought my interests, I had no one I could look up to as a role model. So no one could guide me in these areas. I would have wished for that. So, for example, I have been very interested in entrepreneurship. However, I didn't have anyone in my environment who was an entrepreneur or who could guide me in this area. So I had to learn a lot about the trial and error principle. You have often mentioned that there are different possibilities in this regard. On one hand, when I do trial and error, it means I keep trying myself and running into a wall, learning from my mistakes. That's good. Mistakes are okay. If you don't make mistakes, you probably haven't tried much. But still, you don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. It's good if you can learn from someone who may have already made those mistakes and can tell you, hey, look, don't go in that direction because it will cost you time or money. Do it this way instead. And this is the so-called modeling of excellence principle, which you also share with your coaching participants. I would have wished for that, but in order to do it, you have to know someone who is knowledgeable in that area, which is why I learned a lot about self-discipline and personal success, but also through many mistakes. And I lost both time and money in this process because I simply made a lot of wrong decisions and had to try a lot of things myself. Now I want to look for areas where I bring expertise and where I can say that someone could benefit from it, so that people do not have to go through the same processes and make the same mistakes that I have made.
Isn't it part of the process that you have to make mistakes in order to grow, and that this is simply a part of becoming an entrepreneur?
Absolutely, but I believe that one can always make mistakes. However, it's better to make mistakes that elevate you to the next level. And the small mistakes that may not be necessary but take a lot of time can be avoided. However, when tackling new things, it is also good to make mistakes, because approaching new things means entering a field where you have no experience. And it is completely normal to make mistakes, and that's a good thing because we learn from them. We usually don't learn when everything is going well. We mostly learn when something hurts, when it is painful, when it gets difficult. This is also good for the development of mental resilience and for strengthening perseverance and willpower. But I still believe that there are different levels of mistakes. There are those that are definitely worth making ourselves because we are really venturing into a new area and exploring a new field. And then there are mistakes that are unnecessary and hold us back, because this is a well-explored area where we can learn from others and then use that knowledge to make mistakes at a higher level, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. One thing that sets you apart and definitely distinguishes you from many coaches and entrepreneurs is that you absorb complex things like a sponge and then convey them back in a simple way. As a result, we were also able to establish our training programs. And we were the first in Switzerland to position and market these programs in the fields of nutrition, health, and fitness. I think it wouldn't have been possible without you. Is that a talent? Is it something that can be trained? Or how would you describe it?
I think it's a combination. I actually have a talent for absorbing very complex knowledge relatively easily, and I have the ability to transform that in a simple way. This was something I was born with. But in order to convey something, one must know something. This means that acquiring knowledge, think it through, and to approach the whole thing interdisciplinarily, to analyze and ask how the connections are, where the cause is, what the effect is, all these questions, that is effort. So, it always takes some overcoming for me as well, and that can be trained. I believe that the ability to convey knowledge can also be developed. With everything we share or practice, we get better in the process. But of course, it's like in sports. You can get better at playing soccer, but there are just people like Messi, who were born with it, and if they are disciplined, they will be better than the average. And so I may have a slight advantage in that area with my talent. But that doesn't mean that one can't train for it if they don't have that talent.
Do you have a strategy for that? Does one need to have a strategy or concept as a YouTuber where you say, this is how I will target this audience? Or how have you defined the whole thing for yourself so that you could achieve this success?
I believe I had an advantage in that I have been an entrepreneur for over 10 years. And from that, you learn that strategy is everything. So, preparation and strategy are incredibly important both in entrepreneurship and in building a YouTube channel. And I believe that's what most people do wrong. They just start a YouTube channel and say, I'll try out what works. I'll see where the trends are. I'll just copy that. I'll somehow find a way. And then it doesn't get noticed because you're not the only one uploading YouTube videos. There are millions of channels. More and more people want to realize their potential and become content creators. Therefore, it is more important than ever to have a really good strategy. In order to develop a strategy, one must, of course, bring knowledge to the table. One needs to have knowledge about the platform YouTube, such as how the algorithm works, how to position my videos on the platform, how to describe them, what titles and tags to use, and what structure to apply to the videos. On the other hand, I also need to understand how human psychology works. There is always a person listening to you. Something moves them. This means you need to understand, on one hand, how you address this correctly, who is my target audience, because you can't speak to everyone. So when I speak to a 16-year-old student, I can't use the same language as when I speak to a 60-year-old architect, and that is why it is important to ask yourself, before you even start, who do I want to serve? And to be able to answer this question, I need to know what I can actually do. Because I have to deliver something, some value, otherwise, people won't watch my videos. This means that I primarily need to deal with myself, as you always communicate. The question of identity is extremely important here. So, who do I want to be? And what skills do I need to get there? And what skills do I already have? Or what knowledge do I already possess? Because most people make mistakes in their strategy. Aside from not defining a target audience, they also do not define what value they bring. One shouldn't be asking, how do I go viral? How can I create videos that somehow generate huge reach? But rather one should be asking, or at least that's how I see it, how can I generate value for the viewer? If they are satisfied and see that every time they come back, they receive value, then they will return, and you don't have to go viral to build a loyal community. That's why I find it very, very important to first answer these questions. Where are my skills and strengths? What can I convey that provides value to others? And to whom do I want to deliver this value? So, who is the person on the other side? Who is my target audience? Based on the answers to these questions, I can then define what strategy one should pursue to serve this audience in the long term. So not short term, but really long term. Then, of course, there is the entrepreneurial aspect. So when someone says, I want to make money with my YouTube channel, or I want to build a personal brand, or I already have a business and want to work as an ambassador for that business, or I have my own business and I want to better position my company, my products, and services. So these questions must be answered first, and then a strategy can be developed based on the answers.
So what is your advice to people who say, I want to become a YouTuber? Should I start a YouTube channel now?
I wouldn't start a YouTube channel right away. Instead, I would really focus on acquiring the basic know-how first. So, I would say that first of all, you don't have to be a professional videographer, but you should have certain technical skills, because I believe that in today's world, it is incredibly important to create good content and not just upload random videos and then expect people to engage without putting in any effort. So, one should be somewhat familiar with technology or acquire that knowledge. That's why I make these tutorials, because I know that not everyone has training in this area, but you can learn it. So, this is know-how that you can train and learn. And if you have the technical skills, I believe you should definitely develop a strategy. So I would not start a YouTube channel, whether as an individual or as a company. I wouldn't start there before having a strategy in place. The reason I wouldn't start is simply that you can't just build a personal brand and do something good for yourself. You can also cause harm. So if I upload low-quality content now, or if I don't think it through and target the wrong audience, it could be that I scare away my actual target audience, who might have noticed me, but with my content, they were then not convinced and say, I won't go back there. This means that the speed of implementation is one of the most important things in today's world, but one should not rush it. So, from my perspective, one should really apply the modeling of excellence principle and say, I will look at who is a true professional in the area where I want to build something, and how can I learn from him or her to start with a good strategy from the very beginning.
What do you think about YouTube marketing? Can YouTube help to acquire more customers or strengthen existing ones?
Absolutely. In my view, one of the best tools you can use today is YouTube. And I deliberately say today, because times have changed. It wasn't like this before. Today, everything is becoming more digital and interconnected, and the end customer has more choices. This means that through the internet, they can not only explore other cities, but also other countries. They can look around to see if there is a solution for their problem, and it is important to succeed in standing out from the competition or rivals by positioning oneself in a modern and contemporary way. And I believe that many companies have lost touch because they simply rely on tried and true strategies and say, for example, that they will run Google ads. This has its justification in certain areas, but one must be aware that, on one hand, you become dependent on Google. If you only gain customers through ads, you are extremely reliant on one company. On the other hand, it is also not sustainable because you have to keep running new ads. And then there's a third point that is, now especially, very, very relevant. Many people consume content in video formats. In the past, people read a lot and perhaps gathered information from Google, but due to development and especially through social media, people are becoming more accustomed to consuming videos and obtaining information through video formats. YouTube is a search engine that combines both aspects. On one hand, many people do not realize that YouTube is a search engine. They know that Google is a search engine, but they do not know that YouTube belongs to Google and that search engine optimization can also be done on YouTube. So there are many SEO companies, for example, that show you or support you in how to increase your reach on Google organically. But many are not aware that the same can be done on YouTube and that it is more sustainable because in the future, people will simply consume much more video content. That's a point where one can go along with the trend, and on the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, it's a good opportunity to demonstrate one's competence. The end customer is more aware than ever today that a blog post can be written by an AI. However, when I see a video from a company, for example, if I am now a company and I make videos in my area of expertise, then the customer can see whether you are an expert or not. That means the customer then wonders if they are in good hands or if it was just good marketing through AI-generated content, or if there is really someone, a trusted person, who can support them in their concerns, who understands my pain points, who understands my needs, and who can really address them in a targeted and individualized way that is much easier to transform through video content. It also strengthens the customers. Many companies do not realize that they can not only acquire new customers, but also retain existing ones. They are generally interested in my services. That means I covered an area of interest for him or found a pain point of his and was able to satisfy it, and that's why he became my customer. This means that this customer can also be a sustainable customer who would purchase additional products or services, for example, if they knew that they exist. However, in today's world, one is overwhelmed with information. There is a total flood of information, and it is very, very difficult for companies to break through and remain present in the customer's mind. And when you manage to consistently draw the customer's attention through a good content strategy and quality content, customer loyalty is strengthened, because then the customer sees you as an entrepreneur or as a company repeatedly. And when a need arises in the future, or when someone in their circle talks about something, you will be the first person or the first company that comes to that customer's mind.
What would you specifically advise companies? Should they definitely start with YouTube marketing?
I would advise companies to start with YouTube marketing. Ideally, in my view, this should be handled by someone internally. Many companies outsource search engine optimization, for example for Google, to an agency. With YouTube marketing, that might be possible in the future as well. But to be honest, I would advise against it. I think it would be a better strategy to have your own employees trained, or their marketing department with the skills for YouTube marketing. The point is that video content has a lot to do with personality. An employee should be able to transform values and principles of a company and act as an ambassador for the company. And I don't believe that an external person can do that. Personally, I wouldn't hand over my own content to an agency. The agency may know my products and services, but they do not know what drives me, what my values and principles are, even if I communicate that to them. But if it is not lived, then it will be felt in the videos. And that's why I believe that if the company culture is right and the employees can also transform what the company stand for, then the best strategy is to train your internal marketing staff so they know how to create YouTube content.
But content creators should also have an understanding of YouTube, and if so, where can they acquire these skills?
Absolutely. So there are different platforms for a content creator where they can upload their videos. However, I would really recommend that he uses YouTube marketing, because what many content creators do not know is that YouTube is a search engine, as I mentioned earlier. This means I can generate sustainable content there. On one hand, I can pick up on trends and perhaps benefit from them in the short term. On the other hand, I can also create what is known as evergreen content, meaning content that is always relevant. When I understand these various ways in which I can build and sustainably scale a YouTube channel, then YouTube is, in my view, the best platform to establish and position a personal brand as a content creator. Because you have to imagine, on Instagram, I upload content that slips down and is gone. I don't think many people go through hashtags and search for any content, and even there aren't specific questions I can ask. While many people go on YouTube and search for specific answers, they enter a question and want an answer to that question. And when you understand YouTube properly, when you understand the algorithm and can also deliver high-quality content, then it is one of the best ways to position yourself in the long term. I would recommend getting trained by an expert. For example, we offer training for content creators, and I also provide a YouTube masterclass. If someone wants to learn from me, they can learn step by step how to successfully build a YouTube channel, what to pay attention to, and how to scale it. Or if you know someone in your circle who is successful, you can approach them and seek mentorship.
Thank you very much for the responses.